If you've ever taken a road trip through the Pacific Northwest, you've probably seen a bumper sticker for a place called Gravity Falls.
You've read my journals?
I haven't just read them, I've lived them! But if you're curious, don't wait.
Can you honestly tell me you never felt like you were meant for something more?
Take a trip.
I'm an old man and I'm not getting any younger. What do I have to show for my life?
Find it. It's out there somewhere in the woods, waiting.
It has been 3 years since we parted ways with Gravity Falls. 3 years since Dipper and Mabel's coming-of-age story concluded. 3 years since we last saw the Mystery Shack, the Stan Twins, Seuss, Wendy, Bill Cipher, and a slew of other characters. And while there has been a few releases since then, Journal 3, Journal 3 Special Edition, Gravity Falls Lost Legends, the show itself is done. And it's never coming back. And I don't want it to come back. Yet, despite time passing, there still hasn't been a show like Gravity Falls. There will never be a show like Gravity Falls. I know every show is one of its kind, but Gravity Falls was in a league of its own. Why do I still miss the show? Let me tell you why. To say there hasn't been another show with mystery, lore, an overarching story, intriguing fleshed out characters, and very tight, brilliant writing would be a lie. Steven Universe, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, Rick and Morty. And while none of those properties have concluded yet, they still have yet to spark that feeling in me that Gravity Falls provoked every single time, even when it was at the point of its story all of these other shows are at. And I think the best place to start are the characters. To say Gravity Falls has the most dynamic cast of unique characters who are 100% fleshed out and are some of the most compelling I've ever seen, it would be a lie. A lot of Gravity Falls cast suffered from a lack of development, with a bulk of them either feeling unresolved, needing a bit more development, like Wendy, Pacifica, maybe Seuss, needing a few more episodes or even an entire third season to get to know them a little bit more, and so their end result feels a little bit more earned. It's Ford. I'm mainly talking about Ford. But despite not all these characters being fully fleshed out and having episodes dedicated to just exploring their past, how they got where they are, why they're like this, and how they can evolve to mature people, it's something about these set of characters that are unique, especially when they're all together. And I think a large part of that is due to the people we're surrounded by growing up. Not to assume my experiences are universal, but I feel as if at least a handful of characters in Gravity Falls draw parallels to people in our lives, especially when we were growing up. Not exactly at the age of 12, but an amalgamation. Whether that character is a sibling, or a sibling's friend, or that really cool relative who may be an uncle, or that one guy with a heart of gold, who's the perfect image of how you want to behave when you're older, who looks out for you and cares for you, and you actually enjoy spending time with them. And I'm sure a lot of us have had crushes on people who are older. Maybe it was as a significant age gap as Dipper and Wendy, well, significant when you're 12, or maybe it was just a few months or a year. But again, when you're younger, the age gaps can be kind of a big deal. And by proxy, Wendy is also that older figure you hang out with. I feel like we've also have all had that, maybe as the older sibling of a friend. And that allows you to hang out with their friends, like how Dipper and Mabel got to hang out with the teenagers. And how that was kind of their glimpse into high school. Even that can kind of be compared with to when you're beginning high school, and you befriend someone a grade or two ahead. And you're just thinking, oh, they're so cool, they're so much older and wiser. And then when you get to that age, you realize, alright, they actually weren't that different from how I was, and how I am now. But seeing Dipper especially wanting to hang out with the teenagers, wanting to get their approval, wanting them to think he's cool, again, I think that's something a lot of us can identify with. Or being a regular at a restaurant or a diner, and thus you're frequently recognized by a waiter or waitress, having some sort of relationship with them. The kind where you walk in and it goes, the usual, or maybe that one elderly person who's in the neighborhood, or a friend of the family, and you know they may be a little bit crazy, but well-intentioned. You guys get what I'm saying. So much of Gravity Falls reflects our real life in ways other cartoons haven't really done. And it's done in a way where almost anyone from any walk of life can relate. Again, it may not be one-to-one the age of 12, but you're still able to insert yourself, or the people throughout your life, into these characters. That's not something I really have in common with as much as a show like, let's say, Steven Universe. There are definitely people in my life who are similar to Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl, and people who are similar to the Townies, but just because of how the show is written, and how they balance their focus on the cast, and the role the cast plays on Steven, it's a little bit more difficult for me personally to connect the many characters in Beach City to the many people throughout my life. But again, my experiences aren't universal. Some people may be able to identify with Steven Universe more in that aspect than with Gravity Falls. But I also think that's where the story comes into play, as characters are vital to any animated series, especially on Disney. For example, when pitching a cartoon, typically they're more interested in the characters infinitely more than the story. I think it's just as important, and it's a huge part of why Gravity Falls can never be duplicated. But before I can gush about the story, let's touch on the setting real quick, as it definitely adds to the dynamic aspect. Gravity Falls takes place, well, in Gravity Falls, and that's the thing. Look at practically any other story-driven show. Steven Universe, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, Adventure Time, the list goes on. These shows feature characters going to different locations, different villages, countries, planets, dimensions. It gets bigger and bigger. But for Gravity Falls, it always stays in the town. At most, we explore the outskirts a bit. Only one episode of the series took place outside of Gravity Falls itself, and that was Roadside Attraction. You can argue a Teletoon stands, but considering that's a flashback being recited back to the children, I don't really count that. Every major plot point was relegated to the town. They even made it a point for the apocalypse, everything the series pulled up to be relegated to Gravity Falls itself, and that's incredible. Even when they introduced an interdimensional portal that has the potential to go to other universes, other dimensions, the Nightmare Realm. Any other show would have had the characters go there, have the final battle take place in this brand new world. But Gravity Falls made a point to keep everything in Gravity Falls, because it adds that much more weight to everything. For example, let's say Change Your Mind was the end of Steven Universe, as it was the end of Rebecca Sugar's Outline, although there is more show on the way. Even though I love that episode with all of my heart, having the final confrontation on Homeworld actually would have left a sour taste in my mouth, because we spent so many episodes in Beach City, only to end it on a world we've barely been. Shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender actually has a little bit more slack, as every season they were in a new kingdom. They were always traveling, so ending in the Fire Nation didn't really change it all that much. This doesn't hinder the show at all. With Gravity Falls, they didn't go all out with the end of the world concept. While it was the end of the world, and if they didn't do anything, it actually would have been on a global scale. It would have been the end of Dipper's world, Mabel's world, Stan's world, Seuss's world. The town itself, what was at stake. The vehicle to the final confrontation was the Mystery Shack itself. And yeah, Bill Cipher did conjure up a pyramid, but where was the pyramid? In Gravity Falls. Heck, there was a giant cross-shaped portal in the sky, leading to, you guessed it, the Nightmare Realm, and they never went there. At a certain point, it becomes impressive. All these other shows going to different places, venturing out. And while we're giving kudos, this is also something special about OKKO. A lot of it takes place in the plaza. While they do venture out more frequently than Gravity Falls, there's still a special connection with the audience and the plaza itself. You guys get the idea. The setting and everything they did with it was incredibly impressive and incredibly fleshed out. They somehow managed to make Gravity Falls a small town, while also making it this huge world of endless possibilities. So this all takes us to the story, which utilizes its characters and its setting. Now, a lot of shows have what Gravity Falls had. Overarching story, foreshadowing in every aspect, loads and loads of theory fuel, cliffhangers, your overarching endgame antagonist. But what made Gravity Falls special is that everything relied on the aforementioned 2 points. The biggest mystery in Gravity Falls since day one wasn't just who is the author, but what is up with Stan. The very first episode of this series established that something was up with this man. And as we got closer and closer to the truth, the more and more we began to suspect Stan. Watching not what he seems for the first time, and not knowing what to expect with its ending was some of the most stressful 23 minutes of my life consuming television. The fact the show paved way for Grunkle Stan to become an antagonist at any second, while still having him slay us with humor and sympathize with him, if that's not good writing, what is? The closest comparison I could even think for anyone in a similar role of a main character is Pearl in Steven Universe, when for about 8 to 9 minutes, all the way from the cliffhanger of Can't Go Back and up to the climax of Singapore Rose, they have us wonder, did Pearl shatter Pink Diamond? But even then, it wasn't, is Pearl a supervillain? And that's another thing. Gravity Falls' mystery and big questions, they were simple, and you kinda knew what to expect going into it. Who is the author? Why did he disappear? What is Grunkle Stan hiding in the basement of the Mystery Shack? And then when you find out it's a portal, why does he need it? Who is the triangle guy? Can he be trusted? And the beautiful thing about this is that everything ties back into the characters. Grunkle Stan we saw in nearly every single episode of the series. While the story was advancing, he was just kinda sitting back and doing his own thing. Yet, doing his own thing resulted in answering the biggest question of the series. Now, did the show lose a little bit of steam after the author was revealed? I would say, yeah. It definitely began to feel like a sprint towards the finish line, and they could have benefited from more episodes of Ford. But nearly everything, McGucket, the Shapeshifter, Bill Cipher, the Zodiac, oh god, the Zodiac. Just wait a second. It all came back to Ford's doing. The journals came back to Ford's doing. The journals themselves having a prominent presence in the series. And why did Ford disappear? Because of Stan. But all of this, the characters, the setting, the story, it takes me as to why Gravity Falls, in my opinion, will never, ever be replaced. And if anything else even tries to attempt these things I'm about to mention, it'll just feel like a cheap imitation. The decoding. Alex Hirsch made it no secret that when he was growing up, he was a conspiracy nut. He looked out for hidden messages, symbols, and meanings everywhere. So of course Gravity Falls would be filled with them. And this is what helped Gravity Falls shine. What truly made it unique, and why I still miss it. The episodes and mystery didn't end when the episodes came to a close and the credits started rolling. Every episode of Gravity Falls had a cryptogram in the credits. Season 1 using the Caesar and Atbash cipher as a means to decode it, but Season 2 upped the ante. Not only did they add 2 cryptograms, changing the cryptograms in the credits to require a key to decode them, the key changing each episode and being hidden within the episode, usually pertaining to its plot. And each episode of Season 2, also the shorts, added a flashing image at the end of each episode with numbers on them. This was a combined cipher, and when decoded, reveals a hidden message. Now for both these credit cryptograms and the puzzle cryptograms, these messages could vary from additional lore, to a silly joke, to ominous foreshadowing. But the great part about the puzzle cryptograms were not only did they usually allude to an ominous event happening, but I'm referring to them as puzzle cryptograms for a reason. When you put these flashing images together, they form a puzzle that wouldn't be complete until the final episode. Do you know how awesome and how stressful this was? Once we knew the picture would form the 2 stands, and then for a moment the fandom worrying that when the puzzle was complete, Stan Lee's eyes would be crossed out because the character could have been killed off in the finale. or all of the foreshadowing around Stan's death. Every depiction of Stan got destroyed in a fire, and it got to the point where all the promotional images for the finale featured imagery of Stan with, you guessed it, fire. It's just brilliant, and it went all in. I'm barely even scratching the surface. There's so much lore and Easter eggs jam-packed pretty much everywhere. That's what other shows are missing. Yes, there are details in the background. There's dialogue that serves as direct foreshadowing. There are things that we can come back to and realize, oh my god, they had that planned all along. Or they rewrite it to make it seem like they had it planned all along. But with Gravity Falls, for the most part, they truly did have it planned all along. And they went the extra miles. Those cryptograms were the extra mile. And it certainly paid off with that experience and atmosphere. When you're a theory head like me, and you're trying to figure out what's going to happen next, trying to figure out all the mysteries of a show, Gravity Falls catered to me very well. And that's why it has yet to be replaced, and probably won't ever be replaced. But let's talk about the Zodiac. So one of the coolest parts for me when it came to Gravity Falls was the Zodiac. And again, this is where everything kind of really ties together. Trying to figure out who represents what was intense and amazing. Yeah, we figured out a lot of it by the end of season 1, but going into season 2, figuring out those final pieces, who for sure is the ice bag, who for sure is the llama, who's the glasses, who's the six-fingered hand, who's the misdirect, who's gonna end up not being this thing, but the other thing. Scanning the episode Northwest Mansion Mystery, seeing that painting of a llama and realizing Pacifica is the llama! Stuff like that can never be duplicated, can never be replaced. Stuff like that is what made Gravity Falls, Gravity Falls. And of course figuring out just what the Zodiac would do. What happens when all these characters come together, and seeing that almost come to fruition. It was breathtaking, it was mind-blowing, and they held out until the very end. And they used that Zodiac, they used that intrigue built up over 4 years as advertising for Armageddon 3, shoving the Zodiac in our faces, pretty much saying, yeah, you're gonna find out what it is and what it does. I just really love it, and I really miss it, but I'm glad it finished when it did. But can I have like one more special plea? But of course, what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below, or tweet your thoughts at Roundtable Vids, or for my own thoughts, you can find me at OshikVlogs. We're also on Instagram. Help the Roundtable grow by either becoming a member of this channel or supporting us on Patreon. Link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, throw it a like, and subscribe to the Roundtable so you never miss any great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. OshikVlogs, out.